Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here at Maximum Impact with Jay Cameron. It's been a while since I have posted a video in this setting. I'm in the Seychelles in Africa. East Africa actually is a tropical paradise out in the Indian Ocean. And I will tell you that a lot of times people don't think that these types of places exist in Africa, but they do. And that's a part of what we're doing here at Maximum Impact Travel. We're creating 10 experiences in West Africa, ranging from West Africa to Northern Africa to Southern Africa to Eastern Africa. And you are invited to be a part of them as we bridge the gap and as we also begin to educate by way of exposure. That's what we're doing, and that's why we're not just going to one location, but we actually have many locations that we are looking to introduce as a part of the Maximum Impact Travel experience. So with that said, I've been on the road quite a bit since the middle of March. We had a wonderful tour in Ghana. Then from there I went to Nigeria. Then I went to Tanzania, then to Kenya, and then found myself here in Seychelles. Then be heading to Morocco, Senegal, the Gambia, and then South Africa. That's going to wrap up this particular tour. And then we're going to be getting into our 2022 tours in Ghana and Egypt for this year in Tanzania, working on a big documentary. All of that's on the way. But one of the things I wanted to talk about today is what these tours have been teaching me. One thing I will tell you is this, is that a lot of people don't like the word colonization because they believe that it's over. They think that it's an old concept. They think that, you know, the regimes that simply got up and left 60 plus years ago, when in actuality, the more I travel, the more I see those systems in place, and I see the influence, and I see the imprint that they have left. And so it's a very real deal. And the reality is that that's the way that it is. Imperialism is in place. The global economic systems are in place. The West has its foothold in many, in everywhere, actually. And so when you begin to understand this, you begin to position yourself differently, and you begin to stop seeing yourself as a victim, and you start saying, you know what, how can I begin to play chess in this global economic system? Or you begin to say, well, these people, you know, this government is doing this to me, or that government is doing that to me. And those who subscribe to that, they find themselves pretty much living their lives waiting for a government to change, when in actuality a government is not, that's not the way that it works. And sometimes you have to change your own circumstances. That's why I always tell people, as I travel more, I recognize that I don't have an excuse. I can't show up. When I go back to America, I have no excuse. I can't go, oh, we don't have these opportunities. And now, while some people don't, for me, I have to look at my personal situation and say that I don't have an excuse to show up half-cocked with a bunch of excuses, because I have been afforded the opportunity to travel all around the world, not just in Africa, and experience so many different things that because of that, I should be showing up in a very substantial way, in a way that can benefit people overall, you know, so as well as benefit myself, you know, so that's the one thing. In my travels, though, you begin to see the global economic influence. I remember when I was in Ghana and I was looking for some rice, and the only rice in that particular store was rice that was imported from India. Well, why is the rice imported from India when you're in Ghana, the place that can grow the rice? And that's when you begin to see how this global economic system works. I can tell you that, you know, recently did an interview, and so some folks didn't like the fact that colonization came up, and there were certain things that were attributed to Western entities without giving credit to those in the local community. And the reality is this: local brown people built pretty much everything. When you go to you can look at America, obviously the brown people in America were the ones who built America. Their labor, their sweat, their tears built America. But when it came to the financing of it, there were other entities that financed the projects for the labor And although the labor was stolen, it was cheap labor, or however you want to look at it, there were those external forces. And you see that same pattern all around the world. When you say that to some people, they don't like to hear that, because somehow they're thinking that when you make that statement, that you're saying that the people are not competent who may have built the building or may have designed the building or who may have invented this or invented that. That's not what is being said. What is being said is that from a larger macro perspective, these colonial imperial interests have their footprint all over the world, all over Africa. And so when people say someone is independent, yes, psychologically, you might believe that something is independent, or maybe there's a constitution that was created that might be different from another constitution or something. But even when you begin to dive into those constitutions are still imperial constitutions. They were negotiated as a part of this perceived independence. And so when you look at the judicial system, you see those same types of things in place. When you look at the educational system, you begin to see the Western English, French, Dutch. I mean, whatever the Portuguese influence, even in the education to this day, the way that land leases are set up based upon that. So people would argue and say, well, we adopted this and we did this and we allowed this to happen. And I said, well, you can believe that if you want to. However, when you understand imperialism, the thief does not give back what was stolen. And so sometimes what they'll do is they'll negotiate terms. And sometimes they will negotiate with people who will say, okay, look, we will play your game and allow the people to think one particular way, because what we need in an imperial system is cooperation. So if we can somehow convince the people to think like this, then we will gain their cooperation. There will be no resistance, and we can continue with the plan that was already set in motion. And this is just something I see globally. I see it in America. So this is not an African thing. This is a global thing. I see it in America, where you go and you look at these different cities that have the same problems, cycle after cycle after cycle after cycle. But yet we still keep voting the same people in based on skin color. Not based on whether or not we're going to hold them accountable. And so that's another mind play. Well, these people don't like us, and they're going to do this to us, and the white people, and they're going to do this, that, and the other. Yeah, man, some of that's very, very true, but you got to watch some brown people too. And that's the same thing I see all throughout Africa, because wherever you go, wherever there's greed, wherever there's people who are trying to get ahead, you will find that same type of mentality in place where somebody's willing to sell out. And that's just the bottom line. And they will say whatever psychological triggers that need to be said in order for people to go along with the flow. And again, the more exposed you are to it, you see it on a different, and you don't even have to travel the world to see it. You just kind of look at cycle after cycle. How come things continue to stay the same? Well, the corrupt governments are doing it. Well, let's go behind the corrupt governments, and let's look at who's funding the corrupt governments. Let's look at who's funding these campaigns, these political campaigns. When you start getting to that level, then it starts to tell a different story than what they tell us on the news, or what they teach us in the history books, or what people are just saying within a particular political party or within a particular political structure. When I step back from that, that is when I was able to start to see things more clearly and with a broader understanding of what's happening. So while one country, and this is the other thing that baffles me, this is the thing, I tell you, it's really sad on many levels, but this whole thing about like competing African countries, my country is better than yours, and I'm telling you, and I did an interview with Brittney, and I was shocked by the level of, I don't even want to say ignorance, because I'm not sure if that's the word for it, but just the level of arrogance, I think. And it wasn't even pride in a people. It was like, yo, we're better than these people. These people aren't this, and these people aren't that. And I'm saying, don't y'all understand that's what the colonial master put into place, and that's what they did on the plantations in America. I said, that they still do it, pitting these people. Well, you African Americans, you people, you this, that, and the other, go back to where you came from. And I ain't going back to nowhere now. What you gonna do about it? Nothing now. So, so it's like all of this type of stuff you hear, you say, wow, this is really kind of sad. Because when you try to, this is one of the lessons I've learned in America, that when you try to show people this is what's going on, if they have been so indoctrinated to believe that just this brown skin is your friend, you're easily manipulated at that point, or manipulatable at that point. There's a documentary, and I'll put it in the description. It's called Selling the Negro, and it came out in 1954. Published, it was created by Johnson, I believe Johnson Publishing, and that was Ebony Jet and some other publications during that time. And what it did was it broke down the psychology of how to sell the Negro in America. And one of the things it talked about was approval and acceptance and the need for validation. And so one of the things that I see that in my travels, that if you offer a critique or if you offer an observation, a lot of people take that personally as if you are now trying to come down on the entire group of people. When in actuality, you're not. You're saying, hey, listen, understand how this game is being played so you don't continue to inadvertently be a co-conspirator in this global plan. Now, somebody said, man, the big boogeyman, y'all worried about the big boogeyman out here to get you. See, whenever I hear somebody dismissive like that, I say they've been gotten. They're already up the tree. They're already, you don't even have to do anything with them because they've already been hook, line, and sinkered, if you will, sunk with that particular narrative, because they don't want you to look at them. That's the whole point. They want you to point your fingers at the local governments, whether it be in Africa or America or wherever, and blame them. They want you to think that they're gone. And we walked away because y'all were so bad that y'all kicked us out. I'll never get a time in Ghana. I was watching a feed in Ghana, and the lady, she was upset. She said, I don't like Kwame Nkrumah because he made the British leave. And if he didn't make the British leave, then we would be developed like South Africa. And I was thinking to myself, I said, Kwame Nkrumah didn't have the power to make the British leave. He didn't have the power to do that. As a matter of fact, you saw how powerless he was at that point because the United States CIA ran him out of office. So understanding this on a deeper level, she has misplaced anger. And a lot of people have misplaced anger and they have misplaced affections. Somebody on a recent feed was telling me that a particular president developed a whole country. I said to myself, now a president is on a particular salary. And a president, while may have great intentions and not to diminish the efforts that went into place, does not have the power. One president, especially in a Western democracy, if you will, does not have the power to develop a country single-handedly. There are certain things that are allowed to be done for the president to put the name on it, his or her name on it. But as far as doing everything, there's no president, especially in African countries, that has that level of power, because the powers that control those entities will not allow it. So part of the smoke and mirrors is to be able to say, okay, you tell your people that you built this, you did that, and we're going to give you credit for it. Now, this does not mean that brown people in America or UK or anywhere in Africa, and I'm just using Africa monolithically at this point because it's the same global system. It does not mean that they don't have the aptitude or the ability or the skill or the talent or anything. It's the capacity. And so when we start thinking, well, so-and-so is wealthy and so-and-so is rich, okay, but where does that money come from? See, these are the things that my mind is like, where do the banks get the money from to be able to extend the loans or to do what they do? That money is coming from a global system. And then the other thing that I look at, I said, well, if these places, we wouldn't even be having a discussion about China coming into Africa or United States or UK or France if those entities paid the African countries what they're worth. And people somehow don't want to talk about that. Somehow we're developing and we're doing this and our children are the best in education and our children are the best and our children are helping. I say, well, okay, but you're still in their educational system. It's still their system. You're still learning English. You're still learning French. I'm having this conversation in English. So I recognize the colonial influence on me, the imperial influence on me. But so we're still, you holding their system. They have PhDs in their system. You understand? So that's the part where it's like, okay, well, where does the money come from these banks? World Bank, IMF. Oh, let's dismiss the World Bank and IMF. Go ahead if you want to. Because no country has the military capacity, and I'm referring to African countries or Caribbean countries or As we're seeing European countries, even if you look at Ukraine, Ukraine doesn't have the military capacity to fight Russia. So it has to get military capacity from somewhere else. So which other countries, tell me which African country has the military capacity to fight off the UK, or to fight off France, or to fight off the US, or to fight off China, or to fight off Russia? None. They would need support from somewhere else. And so that's the reality of it. So whether somebody wants to believe it or not, if you want to sit in delusion, go ahead and sit on the toilet of delusion and all of that. Do that. But those who get it will sit down and say, okay, I'm in their system. Now, how do I navigate their system? Understanding that, so that now when it comes time to build a building, you understand, okay, you know what, I might need to go to this particular bank. Somebody, well, that's a black-owned bank. Where does that black-owned bank get the money from? In the imperial system. They still have to go to the imperial system to get the money. That's the bottom line, whether it's shillings, whether it's cedis, whether it's rands, whether it's leons, whether it's francs, whether it's dollars, whether it's euros, whether it's whatever. There's a larger system at play. And so when you understand the basics of economics, the small part of economics is common sense, y'all. This is not deep. Common sense says, okay, what am I going to do? Somebody said, well, get educated. True. Okay, get educated in their system and understand how the game works, but there's another level of education. And what I always say is this next level of education is understanding how the system works. I know people with PhDs that can't get jobs, people who are highly educated that are struggling financially because they didn't get a financial education. And when you don't get a financial education, that's when you find yourself being able to be manipulated. When you don't understand how the credit works, when you don't understand global economics, that's when you say, okay, I can only take my money and invest it here, and that's the only way that I'm going to make money. Versus understanding that when you have an imperial understanding, or even a colonial understanding, that like the Chinese don't have borders, the Lebanese don't have borders, the Indians don't have borders, the colonial colonists, they don't have borders. But when it comes to many people, from what I've seen where I come from, we have borders. We're afraid to get on planes to go fly, to go see something else. How long is the plane? That's too much for me. I'm scared to get on the plane. Chinese say, hey, look, hey, where we got to go? 24 hours on. Okay, cool, no problem. We're going to go. I see them all over the place, everywhere I go. Oh, Lord, I'm scared to get on the plane and go see something, Lord. They're going to kidnap me over there. I was like, who wants your broke behind anyway? No, who going to kidnap you? Who wants your broke behind? You know, so it's stuff you got to start asking yourself. You know, so I guess I need to think about it. Who wants my broke behind? Anyway, I'm joking. I'm being facetious here. But I'm being serious too, though. But on one level. But these people are fearless. And we have that same capacity within us once we understand and we get away from this wild notion of whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna do a talk on this white Jesus thing and how deep it is. So stick around for that. I'm gonna wrap this up for now. But in the comments, I'd love to get your feedback in the comments. And so again, I'm not saying that we don't have the ability to do anything. I'm just trying to take it to another level. I'm trying to get off of these local level conversations and to really dissect this thing so that we can start positioning ourselves better. There's no victims. There's none of that going on. It's like we have to be just as savvy. We have to be just as crafty. We have to be just as relentless as anyone else, or else we'll be singing the same song in the next 15, 20 years. And guess what? I'm not singing that song. And so for those who want the information, that's why we're here. And we want to keep bringing people so they can have the exposure, so they can learn how to position themselves better and make this thing happen. So that's the bottom line to it all. Anyway, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. We have so much more content on the way. Got a bunch of interviews coming from the big meet and greet that we did in Ghana, more from here in Seychelles. I want to see you on one of these Maximum Impact travel tours as we begin to have these deeper conversations by way of exposure. This is how we bridge the gap. This is how we change the narratives, telling our stories and not allowing someone else to come in and do it for us, and telling it on a deeper level, outside of the emotion, or if it is the emotion, using the emotion to be productive. So again, subscribe, like and share. You want to check out our travel website, visit MaximumImpactTravel.com. Follow me on IG at JCameronOfficial. Take care. Be safe.